By the end of this video, you're going to have a great sense about why your kids may not want to talk and open up with you, okay? Now, here's the thing. It comes down to two primary reasons, and it really does. I know that it's more complex than this once we really get inside of it, but I want to make this simple for you so you can understand it and apply one of the two principles, the two strategies that lie inside of these two ideas. So number one, the reason that they don't want to talk or connect with you is because they don't know how yet, right? Now, they might be too young chronologically, like they might just be 12 or 11 or 10 and might not know how to talk about their feelings yet because they haven't been taught. Maybe they haven't been role modeled in school or by your family or by you, which is fine. So they may not just have the ability, and I call that a can't versus a won't, which we'll get to in a minute. They can't. They don't know how. It's a skill that they haven't learned yet. So that's something where you can teach them by not modeling, but by being a certain way. If you want them to share, you become the person that you want them to be. So you share appropriately. If you want them to be comfortable with vulnerability, you get comfortable with vulnerability and be that way with them. Not only modeling in terms of like how you behave, but how you show up as a person. Are you comfortable being open and vulnerable? Are you comfortable being transparent with your life? Again, appropriately with the subjects that make the most sense with your kids. Not with everything. You're not sharing about the sex life of your partner or whatever, right? But you're sharing about appropriate things that they can probably relate to or at least understand, right? So they don't know how, so your role is to teach them, right? Or to model it by being a certain way. That's number one. That's the number one reason that they don't want to talk or connect is because they don't know how. And sometimes we think they just aren't because they don't want to, but they just can't yet. So we need to teach them. No big deal. Okay, number two, this one's a little more complex. And I said this already. They don't want to, right? It's a won't versus a can't. It's a lack of desire versus a lack of ability, right? And they don't want to for one of two reasons. The subtext behind the second reason. Number one, they've been hurt in a relationship with someone else, or they've been hurt in a relationship with you. And their trust in relationship, meaning their ability to be vulnerable, is rocked. And so how do they guard their vulnerability? They don't share, right? They don't talk about things that are risky, that they could get hurt by or they could get judged from, right? So they keep their cards close to their chest. They don't share about the really important, interesting, rich, challenging, all those aspects of their lives with you because they've been hurt in relationship with you, another adult, or somebody else. And their trust has been rattled in relationship. So your responsibility in that case is not to find out what happened. That's for someone like me as a therapist or as a mentor or a coach. That's not your job. Your job is to become the big enough reason, the compelling reason to have them trust you again with their intimate world. That's your job, is to show up in a certain way with them, not by asking questions, just by how you are as a person, by being vulnerable, by being transparent, by being someone who's trustworthy, not only like emotionally trustworthy, but logistically trustworthy, meaning you do what you say you are going to do. If you say you're going to pick them up on time, you're there at that time. If you're going to cook a dinner or provide a dinner, you're going to do that. If you don't do that, you take responsibility for not sticking to your word. That's a part of being trustworthy. And many of us strive to be that way and fall short, myself included, which is okay, right? But what's the bar? Do we strive to follow through and do what we say we're going to do? That's really the question. So your responsibility when your young person doesn't want to share, and remember, they don't want to share because of one of two reasons. Either they don't know how, fine, that can be taught. It's usually number two, they don't want to. And why don't they want to? Because they've been hurt. So your role is to be a big enough, compelling reason. Provide that for them, not logically, emotionally, in terms of how you feel being in relationship, right? Being that trustworthy parent. Do they feel like they want to share with you? Now, here's a subtext of this, another nuance to this. If they share with you, are they A, going to get in trouble? B, lose independence? Because they might share something with you about how they were almost assaulted, or how they are doing drugs or experimenting with drugs or using alcohol or doing other things that are, let's just call them risky. Maybe they're not making the best choices. If they share those things with you, you are going to want to limit their independence because of how they're using their independence in ways that don't make sense. And this is the complexity of parenting, and this is really the art of it. It's I won't give you advice in terms of what to do if your son or daughter comes to you and says, or your young person comes to you and says, I'm smoking weed and I really like it, and I'm being really vulnerable with you, and if you take it away from me, I'm going to be angry with you. That's tough. There's a lot to say about that. Here's some things to consider as a part of that. Retain the relationship as long as you possibly can, while also holding the appropriate boundaries with them, right? So you might say, listen, I'm super glad that you shared this with me, that you're using drugs and it's really hard for you to stop and that you want to continue. I really appreciate knowing this about you. I'm concerned, certainly, and here's what I want to do. I'm going to limit the amount of money that you get for now until you can prove to me that you're managing this on your own. And I want to give you the opportunity to manage this on your own because I have concerns about it, right? You'll say this in your own kind of less cringy way probably than I'm saying it. But you'll find your adult way of communicating two things: that you're concerned and that you appreciate them and that you're grateful for what they're sharing. That will acknowledge the vulnerability that they've leaned into with you. And two, you're going to do something about the risky behavior, the things that are not appropriate for them to be doing at that time, right? But it's a real dance and it's a real art. But you want to retain the relationship as much as you can. Acknowledge that they're sharing something meaningful with you and that it's a risk for them to share it with you. And then two, you've got to do something about it, right? What to do exactly depends on so many different factors, right? So this is it. It's like, and again, you don't need to find out how they got hurt. Just know that they were at some point. Your job is to create the healing salve of a relationship, of that when they are connected to you, they feel good. They feel understood. They feel gotten, because ultimately, and I've worked with, 10,000 plus people at this point in my 20 plus year career, and over tens of thousands of hours with young people and families who are in crisis. So I have a really good sense of how humans function. And all this is what it boils down to. People just want to be gotten. They want to be seen. They want to be understood. They want to be known in a way. And some people are freaked out by that, but they're freaked out by that because they've been hurt in their pursuit of being understood or being gotten. So your job is just to get them, to understand them. And part of getting them and understanding them is admitting that you don't, right? I mean, I do this all the time. I'm like, help me understand the person that you are, because I don't really get it. I'm 46, you're 16. I am an observer of your generation, right? I am not in it. So you can be that humble. You can be that curious, right? And put your kind of boundary holding hat away for a moment and become a person who's just curious about the person that they are, right? Without expecting them to show up a certain way. It's okay to get breadcrumbs for a while, right? Okay, so that's what you want to do. If they don't want to talk or connect, know that they don't know how, or they've been hurt in a relationship. And your job is to lean into it, to make light of it if you can, make light of yourself, be curious, name that it's awkward and uncomfortable, be transparent, and as much as you can, lean in, be there for them, be curious, be open, be vulnerable, and most importantly, become a compelling reason for them to trust you. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a comment below if you'd like more about this content or other questions. I'm really happy to provide more, and all my best.